Hello, Taylor and I interviewed a music supervisor about their job, so this is our presentation about it. So the music supervisor that we found to interview, his name's Cody Partridge, and he's part of the Supergroup music supervision company. They're based out of Toronto, like their main offices are based in Toronto, but he himself lives in Cambridge, Ontario. So he is their lead music coordinator and clearance music supervisor. He himself has worked on Letterkenny and Schitt's Creek, but Supergroup as a company has worked on a ton of Canadian content like Kim's Convenience and Rookie Blue, and done, like he's mentioned, they did a bunch of TELUS ads and stuff like that. And as well, he's also on the board for the Guild of Music Supervisors in Canada, which every music supervisor in Canada is a part of. So he's the coordinator and treasurer of that guild.
Cody talked to us all about his background and his education experience and all that good stuff. So he actually studied music business at Durham College for 2 years and said that it was very quickly that he realized he wanted to go into music supervision. But he found out very fast that it was a very hard career to get into because, it was mainly based out of Los Angeles, which ended up being kind of his goal was to end up in Los Angeles. But after visiting, he realized very quickly that he hated it because he doesn't even like being in Toronto. So he didn't really want to be in Los Angeles. So came back to Canada, and he was working in an old folks home and at a bank, and had unpaid internships with Vapor, which was another supervision company, and a publicity company, which led him to getting a job at Supergroup, which is where he is now and has been for quite some time.
So placing songs in film or TV is usually split into two different processes, the creative process and the admin process. So the way they do it in Supergroup is that they have a creative team that talks to the clients and looks at what kind of mood they need for a song, what the client wants for that part of the project, and goes through and suggests 2 or 3 songs that could work in that spot. And then they send those suggestions over to Cody, who is on the admin side, or the admin process of placing songs. And he figures out the money and logistics of it. So he'll go out and research who owns the song that they want to use, and figures out what they have to do for licensing, and how, and quotes, and figures out what they have for budget and what they can afford to quote the owners of the song, figures out and coordinates everything and makes sure that everybody agrees to the price and that it can actually be used. So not all companies do it this way. It used to be more so there would usually be a single person who do all the work, like both the creative and the admin side of it. And then if they had extra work, they might shuffle off a bit of the admin work to a second person. Supergroup's a lot more collaborative. They find that less multitasking is less mistakes if they have certain people assigned to different sides of it. And that way it's more seamless and just less things falling through the cracks. So as a result, Cody himself works at home 4 days a week and is only in Toronto 1 day a week because most of his work is done by phone or by email.
In terms of finding clients, it's all about knowing people and your connections. And Cody said that Supergroup is mainly Canadian focused. They have a really strong passion for working with Canadian artists and for Canadian shows to just kind of keep Canada's entertainment, as well as keeping America's entertainment. So they're usually approached through people that they've worked with previously, such as Letterkenny. Cody's worked with them for most of the time, so whenever they need supervision, they just kind of keep going back to him and Supergroup.
So the rest of the Supergroup team are based in Toronto and live in Toronto, but face-to-face isn't part of Cody's job, so he lives outside of the city. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, he does go in once a week to do team meetings and stuff, but all of his logistics work is all online. As for the rest of the team, it is quite important that they're in a major hub, though, since most of the film and TV work in Canada is in obviously Toronto or Vancouver, and in America in LA. But that being said, he isn't part of the creative or the sales parts of music supervision, so he can live outside of the city. He also talked about he'd originally, when he first heard of music supervision, he'd originally planned to move to LA for that reason before he was 25, but he took a visit there and found that it was super similar to Toronto, and he didn't really like Toronto, so that kind of a little bit put the kibosh on that. But Supergroup, he mentioned that his company really emphasizes pride in Canadian work and not being so dependent on the American scene, and that anything they can do in America, we really should be able to do in Canada.
Supergroup gets so many emails of different songs that artists want to be put in movies and ads and shows. Independent artists, major label artists, everybody, constantly. And they go to showcases and different live performances to hear different groups, different songs. And then all the music that they get, the interns download into the iTunes account so that Cody and all the other members of Supergroup can listen to the songs and find the different, the fits for whatever they're working on at the time. And Cody's job is kind of researching who owns the song and like making the quotes, and figures out different licensing stuff so that everything can kind of be made official so they can put it in to the entertainment. Cody said that when picking songs for productions, there's no real formula to it, and quality isn't the be-all end-all. They kind of take everything into consideration, and he said that it's not what music fits the project, but what project fits the music, which I think is a really cool way of putting it, because every song has its place, and it might be used for one thing and not for something else. It might be fantastic for a specific show and not for another, and I think that's really cool that they take everything into consideration, and it's not just like a specific set of rules and regulations for each song. So there is opportunity for all. So when artists submit songs, it often happens that the song just doesn't seem to fit for the project that's going on at the time. But since all the songs kind of go in the vault and they're in the iTunes, Supergroup has the music forever. So down the line, it could be a few weeks, could be a few months, could be a few years, they can go back and find a song that fits for the project at the time that might have been sent in 5 years ago. And they work on so many things at the same time that even if something is sent in and doesn't work for that person's specific project, they can show it to another person and it fits perfectly in their project. And it's also easier to get rights to like really super popular songs that Canadian artists cover, so that they don't have to go through as much of a process to get the rights. It's more so that artist's rights at that point. So yeah, it could be years, and you just gotta be patient as the artist, because your music might be used soon. It might be used in 10 years from now.
So music supervision is a very tough field to get into. There are a lot of applicants and not a lot of, few positions, but you have to be well established to do well at it, and it's often a lot more work than people realize. Cody himself said that when he first heard of music supervision, he thought it would be easy. It would just be picking songs that he liked and putting them into shows. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. You need to understand how to contact publishers and labels, figuring out price points and obviously price points that'll work for everyone, and understand the structures of those deals and contracts. You have to figure out where and when it's airing and what kind of rights and licenses you need for each specific project and each specific song within a project. And then you have to balance all those factors with what the client wants, which can be ever changing. And so as a result, the job doesn't really have hours. It's very around the clock. Cody mentioned that if he gets an email, his wife knows that he's probably going to be wrapped up in that for a while, especially if there's something has come up that he needs to do. As well, there's also a ladder and chain of approval within everything. So Supergroup has its own ladder and chain of approval for projects. A film or a TV project will have a ladder and chain of approval. And as well as, especially when you're dealing with a major label or a big group of songwriters, there'll be a ladder and chain of approval. So it's a very complicated job, and can have a lot of factors involved. That being said, he seemed to really enjoy what he's doing, and he's obviously worked a long time to get into the field, so it must be rewarding for him.
So music supervisors dictate the quotings for the music that is going into the shows and movies and ads. And so basically it's kind of split into two sides, the mastering side and the publishing side. So when they say $5,000 per side, it means $5,000 for mastering, $5,000 for publishing, $10,000 total. And independent artists are usually easier to deal with because the supervisor gives them that quote, like $5,000.
Some of Cody's advice for songwriters was to always have instrumental versions for editors to use during dialogue, because even if you don't send that in with the original song, have some saved somewhere so that if they need it, you can send it to them, because they can edit it to have it under dialogue so that it's not so distracting as a song with vocals would be. Also to have many versions of it on hand, because sometimes an acoustic demo might be more what they're looking for, or a fully produced thing might be what they're looking for. So don't be shy to send different versions of it. They aren't always necessarily looking for something that's super produced or shiny. So don't be shy to send things in. But that being said, the song is also what they hear. So they're not going to do any production to it. So what you send in is what they're going to consider and is what is going to be on their brain. So just keep that in mind.
You jump a freight train, roll